Deception is common when looking at video games. Games that look like simple spunk gargle wee wee games could actually turn out to be one of gaming's greatest narratives. What look like wholesome children's games can actually be a horror story worthy of being a Saw spin-off. What looks like a video game is actually a steaming pile of shit. These are but a few deceptions that I have observed in the world of video games. But the biggest deceptions of all are the pieces of shit that carry themselves as fine art. Or, alternatively, the fine art that masquerades as shit.
You know, TV shows are never really done justice when represented as video games, are they?
I mean, you've got Game of Thrones, Walking Dead, hell, even Lost. They're all shows that people enjoy, but when someone tries to make a video game of them, they always manage to completely fuck it up. I wouldn't even mind, but Walking Dead's a show about zombies. How the fuck do you fuck up a zombie game? Game of Thrones? Just make a Dragon Age clone or something. Oh. They did. Oh. Well, my point is, it's so rare that a good show can succeed as a good video game. So, when I saw this game, I expected the worst. I was honestly expecting Coronation Street and the missing hot pot recipe levels are fucking terrible. But here's the thing though.
No shitting. No hyperbole. I'm serious. This might be the best TV tie-in game I've ever played. I'm dead fucking serious.
I'm going to shed what little masculinity I have left by admitting that I did actually watch this show when it was on TV. It was one of the few things that me and my mother appreciated at the same time, and we watched it week after week for years. I'd even go as far as to call the show a guilty pleasure. It's not great, sometimes it's barely even good, but what I love about this show is that it knows what it is. It's more or less a soap opera like Coronation Street, Emmerdale, The Walking Dead, but with the boring shit more or less cut out. Most of the plots are done more like Friends than in Coronation Street. The difference being that there's usually a dilemma and the characters more or less have to come it over the course of the episode. This show knew that it wasn't high art and simply decided to try and entertain, and in that regard, I'd say it works. The occasional joke would hit for me, the stories were usually interesting enough to invest in, and if they weren't, they'd move on from them pretty quickly. And every mid-season finale and season finale, they always threw something huge at you, just to shake things up a little.
Yeah, forget that shit in Coronation Street, trams crashing into the fucking street. In this series, a biplane randomly crashes into a county fair. For no reason at all. It's fucking great.
Yes, it might seem odd that a murder can happen every 6 months on the street, and a terrorist attack is more than less than norm at this point in the universe, but as I said earlier, this is trying to be entertainment, and from what I remember, bear in mind I was 13 years old at the time, it succeeds.
Anyway, I need to stop embarrassing myself by gushing over a show that's for 40-year-old women, because, well, we've got a game to talk about.
When I actually looked on the back of the box, I was flabbergasted to find out that this actually looked like a game. Like a game with graphics and some semblance of a point to it. From what I could gather online, it's a form of Sims clone, but with a narrative focus, making it more like a point-and-click adventure game. To my amazement, I couldn't help but notice a lot of positive reviews. Hell, IGN gave it an 8 out of 10. Now I know that they aren't the forefront authority on game criticism, but hell, I was rather surprised. So I could no longer wait. I put the game in, installed the bastard and got to work, beginning my quest on Wisteria Lane. The premise of this game is that you're a new housewife, kind of like how you're the new Ghostbuster in the 2008 Ghostbusters game, and you'll more or less get to live the show. I was quite surprised that not only do you get to create your own character, but you get quite a few customization options as well. I mean, it's not fucking Fallout 4, but what do you expect? But you also get to fully customize the husband character as well as the son, which I'd say is pretty advanced for its time. I mean, games are only just starting to do that now. However, this opportunity required me to do two things. One, I needed to imagine myself as a woman. And two, if I was a woman, and I could have any man in the world to be my lawfully wedded husband, who would I? Keith David. So, I did my best to make him look like Keith David, and honestly, I think it's pretty decent. I'm more or less in the right ballpark. Now for my son, who is growing up in a predominantly white suburban environment, better give him a name that matches. Perfect! So the game starts up and I begin to notice that this game actually has a sort of episodic structure. There are a series of quests that you can do and you have to advance in the season. The game ends when you've completed all 11 episodes. Well, technically 12, but the last episode is more or less just the ending cutscene. Honestly, I like this structure. It actually reminds me of Sims Medieval in a way, and allows you to do more or less what the show does, which is pretty much what the game should be there for. My first objectives are more or less a tutorial, and it's more or less like The Sims. I do have to say that the camera though is pretty decent. You just push the mouse forward and back to zoom in or out, and this makes it rather simple. Sure, it lacks the complex angles that Sims 2 Onward had, but I honestly don't mind that, as it served as a hindrance in all honesty, especially for new players. The tutorials are also quite brief. Like the show, it knows not to overstay its welcome. However, it's whilst pissing around with the options that I noticed that I cannot save.
Oh. Shit.
I'm really not sure why this is the case. Whether it's the fact that this game is over 10 years old, or if it's something specific to my computer, but yeah, the save feature broke for me and that meant that quitting would result in losing progress, possibly everything. This doesn't bother me, not right away. It's not like I'd want to save and come back to this game anyway, or at least I hoped I wouldn't. Anyway, no time to worry about that now. Edie is here. Edie from the show.
It is good you came by. I have questions about the genophage.
You and everyone else.
No, not that Edie! I mean the bitchy estate agent. It's at this point that I wasn't entirely sure if the cast from the show had put their voice talent to this game, or if they hired imitation voice actors. The reason why, mostly, is that these voices are almost exact as I remember the characters from the show. It doesn't honestly surprise me. I mean, Eva Longoria was worth a lot of money at the time. She was in movies with Kiefer Sutherland, so I imagine she wouldn't be cheap to get. I'm glad these developers were smart enough to put the game over the voice actors. But even then, I feel like they mostly did a good job replicating the voices. The only character who I feel was completely off in terms of appearance and voice was Eva Longoria's character. She seemed to look and act a bit more like Susan, this character. I totally don't know all of their names. Or, I learned their names from this game. Yeah, we'll go with that excuse. So Edie is a condescending bitch, so I act like a condescending bitch back. And this is another aspect of the game that I like. The multiple dialogue options more or less allow you to take the game down different paths, something that actually impresses me. Though I get the feeling that some of the dialogue trees go down the same path regardless of options picked. It's nice to at least have the illusion of choice though. When reading the walkthroughs and stuff, I've found that there's more of an illusion of choice here rather than an actual choice. Don't get me wrong, I wouldn't exactly say it's a bad thing. I mean, it's pretty true for a lot of games. Walking Dead by Telltale Games is one of my favourite things ever, but let's be honest, the choices you make don't really alter the story. You can more or less just make blind choices all the way through it and you'll still make it to the end. They're just minor details that are occasionally brought up. This is how I feel about this game. I noticed this when a character who I completely screwed over said she'd help me in spite of what I did. Now, a game where your choices actually do matter, like Fallout New Vegas or Dragon Age Oranges, they'd normally have certain quests closed off from you, or at least would make me work harder for them to earn a character's forgiveness. But this game just kinda lets you get away with stuff. If it isn't essential to the plot that you're in some way punished for it, that is. Anyway, Brie Vanderkamp also comes over and invites me to a local gossip group. She might come across as a snobbish and condescending bitch, but bearing in mind that every character has some major flaw, and in all honesty, this was also something that I liked about the show. No character was consistently good or consistently bad, even the worst characters had some sort of redeeming factor or a dark secret, making everyone just a bit more human. It's not Heart of Darkness levels of deep or anything, but I don't know, I find it refreshing to see. And the game does this equally as well. In some quests, characters who are the guy you were helping turn out to be the guy that you're working against, and personally, I think it's quite well implemented. So my meet and greet goes well. Quite well, actually. I do as I usually do, remain as neutral as possible, and definitely don't talk shit about people, as it always comes back to bite you in the arse. You have to meet everyone, get to know them, try not to slap Gabrielle.
Ow! What's with you?
Oops. Anyway, it's upon meeting the group for the first time that something is let slip. At the beginning of the game, you notice that the protagonist has some scarring on their face. I wasn't sure if this was meant to be scarring though, so I decided to keep my mind as open as possible that it could be some sort of texture glitch. But no, it's actually important. Your character apparently has amnesia, something that's actually quite, again, important to the game's plot. And the funniest part is that this might actually be the best amnesia plot I've seen in a video game thus far. Better than a lot of games' interpretations, really, and this is why. The fact that you create the character and give them their own name and personality more or less means that the player and who the protagonist were before their amnesia are different people. The player even has a different name when speaking to characters from her past. What I like about this is that it makes one woman two different people. The player, like the protagonist, has no recollection of her previous life, and therefore choices that she's made before the amnesia aren't the player's or even hers, they're someone else's and you're living with the consequences. As I said, this is a great way to use an amnesia plot. It allows the player to have their own character with a personality and name and full backstory without it seeming inconsistent or confusing when compared to the pre-amnesia sections of the plot. Characters like Shepard from Mass Effect are good, but you're asked about your past and you don't really have any context of the situation that you're being asked about, unless it's something that happened in the game. Here, there is a legitimate reason not to have any context, and personally, I like this. I like this a lot. Another thing that I kind of like is your character's name is mentioned in the subtitles, but not in the audio. I don't know, it seems like a good compromise and a good way to implement the name without just screwing the player over, rather than just flat out ignoring your name like most games do. So anyway, I go home and I'm doing some cooking. It's at this point that I notice that some interactables actually have minigames attached to them. Personally, this makes it a lot more interesting to me. I mean, you can cook a wide variety of things, and the cooking minigame is quickly done and the interactivity is kind of fun as well. There's also a gardening game, and again, these are also quite fun. They break up the monotony like the hacking puzzles in Mass Effect, or something along those lines. Only, I feel like these are better implemented, as they don't feel like something stopping you from moving on, like a hacking puzzle would. We know that the character's hacking the computer, but here we're actually interacting with the object and seeing the progress as we go. instead of just having to match symbols or match lines of code like you would in Mass Effect 2. It's also a bit better than just watching an AI like poke an object a few times like they would in The Sims. I could actually see these mini-games being part of a phone game or something like Purple Place. I wouldn't say if this was a cooking simulator I'd go out and buy it, but they're competent and rather fun to experiment with in a game like this. I'll have you warned though, I'm a fucking pro at them. So I served my shitty dinner to Keith David. Sorry, the sex god Keith David walks into my kitchen and he's a total fucking twat. Like, he flat out stops me from talking about my day. I have half a mind to make him wear this flaming French toast. Anyway, the next morning the flamboyant gay neighbour, who's one of those by the way, and his brother, Frank, come to visit. Apparently he's come to install some shit on my computer, so I just let him, of course. It's not like he could be a cyber terrorist using my computer as some sort of node or something. As they install it, I'm told that Susan has lost something, so I have to look into it. Like in the show, Lynette's children are little twats, and they've stolen her painting. So I have to break into my neighbour's house and return the painting. There's no choice. Talk about illusion of choice. Somehow I managed to trigger something while sneaking in, but it has no effect on anything. Seriously, how the fuck did that happen? So after dicking around in the mall, consulting the therapist, who is, I'm not gonna lie, rather pointless as far as I'm aware, he adds little to anything, so bugger him. What I will do, however, is get some new clothes. After all, Keith David is a doctor. I don't have to worry about finances, that's for sure. When I get home, I discover that my son is having a rather heated discussion on the phone.
No one was around to see me, so I had more than enough time to line up my shot before I blew him away.
It's a video game.
That moron should have known better than to mess with us. He had it coming.
It's a video game.
Next time, we're going to kill every last one of them.
It's a video game.
Tell me what's wrong.
Oh, for fuck's sake, it's a video game!
Let me guess. He was talking about some guy he knew being addicted, and talking about wasting people? And waging war, or something stupid like that too, right? Ugh, it makes me sick. But there are people at our school that do worse things with their spare time, so it's like whatever. You know what? I can't talk about this anymore. It's all that Fox guy's fault anyways. The really weird one.
For instance, sometimes he starts blabbing about utter war or something like that. A lot of times, I just don't understand what he's talking about. Technical stuff and all that.
So I googled the game's name, and lo and behold, it turns out to be a video game.
Well, shit. Who would have guessed? Oh wait, anyone!
This is one of the things that kind of bothers me. Normally deductive reasoning should allow the player to get through the game quicker as a reward for being so quick on the uptake. There should be some sort of shortcut for those who are able to solve the situation quicker than others, but also allow a number of other steps for players who aren't as quick on the uptake. This mission, in all honesty, is more or less where the game falls on its arse. I think this is mostly about using the internet for the first time, which is why they don't let you just skip this bit. But, I don't know, it's just kind of annoying that you can't just use your common sense. I do like that there is actually an internet in this game and you can use it yourself. It's almost as good as GTA 4's. In fact, it's better because it's not got a load of stupid distractions in it. This feature is actually pretty good. It reminds me of that tell me about feature from Fallout. You type in a keyword into the search engine, it comes up with results. Some of the time. Most of the time it doesn't have a fucking clue. Just like the real internet, you know, you just type in majority of the words and you get fucking nothing. In the next episode, things actually get interesting. My son is getting F grades, which blows as he's banging a teaching assistant who should be helping him do his homework. But then the plot thickens. Apparently he's also banging the teacher as well, and she's practically untouchable because of her connections to the governor. Wow, my son gets around. She's pissed off because he's banging the teaching assistant now instead of her, and therefore she is causing him to fail due to a petty grievance. I find this problem is a little too easy to solve, but I think this ties in well with the show, which also tried to keep its problem resolutions to single episodes. My biggest problem with this is that the choice aspects of this episode is kind of dumb. You can either blackmail a teacher and free your son from her evil clutches, or for no reason at all, with no reward, no nothing for this, you can keep pimping him out. This seemed a tempting option though. I mean, my son is a twat, but I didn't want the teacher lady to win, so I blackmailed her back. Two wrongs may not make a right, but they do get results. Okay, so from this point on, you might want to leave if you're thinking about playing this game in the future. It's around £1.50 these days, and you can get it online or from CEX for something like I did, £1.50, and I'd highly recommend that you do. For those of you who beat the game or don't give a shit, let us continue on our venture in Wisteria Lane. Anyway, my old neighbour lady, Mrs. Davenport, is a wee bit pissy because somebody fucked up her yard. She suspects Mike the plumber and his dog. They're responsible for this deed. Turns out it was actually Lynette's shitty little kids again. I tried talking to them, but they say they won't talk to a stranger. Obviously, strangers are bad, but strangers that try and give you candy are okay. And it's perfectly okay to take that candy from them and eat it. It's not like you can hide drugs in candy or anything dangerous like that. Oh no. It's at this point that I began to notice another flaw in this game, and that's the walking. It really gets to me. Let me tell you, you walk slow as fuck in this game, and it's tedious as all hell. There is a fast forward button, sure, but I've often found myself jumping the mark and wasting valuable in-game minutes on it by accident. This would usually happen if I was moving location in the game, and it would just move my mouse to the center of the screen without my prior knowledge or consent. Ugh! Right, so after getting the little cunt some candy, that's another thing, they committed vandalism, so okay, here's some fucking chocolates. Keep up the good work, you little shits. Right, so I have the choice between telling the old lady that the boys did it, and I don't really have a reason not to. They're little shits, and their mother just isn't fucking doing anything to discipline them. So fuck them. I'll hand them over to Satan personally, so long as he accepts my no refund policy. Of course, the old bag refuses to believe me without evidence. Evidence? I'll show you evidence, you fucking old bint. I have evidence that your husband, Mr. Davenport, ran off with someone else and didn't actually die. Is that the evidence you were looking for, you loathsome old cow? So I blackmail her and reduce her to tears, because fuck walking around this neighbourhood just to re-establish something that I've already told her. She should have listened to me the first fucking time. Well, that means Mike and his dog Bingo are cleared. That's it for another day. What a great job I'm doing. Oh, I should probably mention that this episode also begins with the poker minigame, which allows you to play a poker game, in case that wasn't obvious. Now, I don't know what the rules of poker are, so I have no idea how to play this. They explain it, but I've had this game explained to me more times than I can count, and I still don't have a fucking clue what I'm doing, so I kind of just mash buttons until it's over. Anyway, it's time for me to use the catwalk. Yes, I'm about to become a supermodel. A star. I learned that I need some materials for my dress, so I go to Gabriella, who strikes up a deal. If I can make some food for her husband's co-workers, she'll give me the dress.
Oh, caterers cost money. Besides, if the food is perfect, Carlos will know I didn't make it. I need the flawed cooking that only someone like you is capable of. I need the flawed cooking that only someone like you is capable of. This is yours. It's a pleasure doing business with you.
So, I get the dress, but it would seem that Edie wants me to sabotage the fashion show, since she wasn't invited to it or something. I figured that the smartest thing that I could do is tell her that I'm going to do it, but then not do it. So that I could take the things that she needs in order to sabotage the show, and then just keep them out of her reach. She even made a point of saying that if I say that I will and I won't, then she'll come down on me with a biblical wrath. So fierce that hell will hath no fury. By that she meant she won't do a fucking thing and will eventually call me to tell me her backup plan, despite the fact that I betrayed her the first time. So I betray her again. What? I have no investment in her happiness or welfare. She was only offering me $100 and I could easily get that by playing through The Simpsons skateboarding. Not only that, but she stopped me from banging Carl the cop. The next morning she gets revenge on me by inviting some dude who I don't know to my home and starts showing him around the place like he's going to buy it. So obviously I keep hitting on him just to piss her off. Tee-hee. So the next day there's a locket in the mail which I didn't order. I even checked my Amazon order list to make sure it's definitely not something I sent for. So I asked Gabriella about it and she speculates that the person in the picture on the locket might be me. And everyone seems to universally agree that the guy in the picture with me is attractive, so I guess that's a lead of sorts. This is where the amnesia plots begins to unravel, and as you can probably tell, so far it's mostly been foreshadowing. But no more pussyfooting around, let me tell you. We have ourselves a mystery to solve. So I'm tasked with making soup for Lynette and her shitty kids, which I pulled off masterfully, of course. Truly, I am a savant in the kitchen, a maid in the living room, and a whore in the bedroom. I truly am fitting in here. Anyway, I get a call from my husband, and I'm really starting to get a suspicion that he's banging his secretary. I do like how it's not plainly obvious, at least. It wasn't to me, at least, anyway. It's left somewhat ambiguous for a bit, but you sort of have to use your deductive reasoning as to whether or not you should be cautiously optimistic that he is indeed being faithful, or if you just want to shriek in his face about being a cheating dickbag. To me, this makes him the most flawed of the three potential love interests. Now, this isn't Mass Effect. Your love interests aren't the same as the people you can bang. Believe me, you can bang everyone on the street if you want, but your love interest is one of three potential people you can ride off into the sunset with, whereas the people you can bang are just people you can ride in general. Anyway, we discover that the neighbour, Frank, has apparently skipped town and has left some rather disturbing messages on the message board of his favourite video game. Who's Frank? Well, he's the guy that installed all that shit on my computer. His brother is the flamboyant gay guy who ran the fashion show. He's called Daniel, by the way. Anyway, Frank acts quite suspiciously, mainly because he's always twitchy. He believes that someone is always after him, which is why he moved in with his brother, I guess. To use him as a human shield? Yeah, makes sense. The next morning I get a phone call from some woman who claims that my husband is in fact screwing his secretary, so I decided to break into my husband's office and more importantly into his safe, but to do this I'll need a distraction. I asked Susan to play sick and have the doctor himself come around at about 6 PM, more or less giving me hours to break in and get what I need. While I wait, I enter a cooking contest, and as if there was any doubt that I could be beaten by inferior cuisine. Anyway, I cook dinner for my husband, but he just doesn't show up. What a prick! I rip him away from work to keep him from the temptation of infidelity, and this is what he does? That's it, fuck this waiting shit. I'm fucking the maid. So, after banging the maid, my no-good, cheating, lying sack of turd husband arrives, and everything goes according to plan. I break into his office and...
Busted!
Ah, shit. So this time I have to look up my husband's secretary online. If I'm going to stand the chance of beating her at her own game, I'm going to have to get some dirt on her. I find some information that proves she's actually a con artist of sorts. She often swindles people out of their money in courts of law. So I tell her girlfriend and, well, let's just say I leave her with nothing. She actually congratulates me on beating her at her own game before fucking off. Well, at least she's nice about it. The next morning I wake up to find that my house has been broken into. I didn't remember there being a knife with Frank's picture on my desk. I thought it was Katie Hopkins' picture. Anyway, it would seem that from the looks of it, the person who broke in was actually after Frank. So whilst being interrogated by the unfortunately not fuckable cop outside, I'm subjected to sexism. Sexism! By my own husband, no less. So I make him do wife chores all day. That'll teach the cheating twat bandit. Right after showing him how cooking is done, of course. Well, while he tries to top that, Frank stops by to tell me what's going on. Apparently he installed some sort of node into my computer. God fucking damn it! Right, so now we're both in hot shit with the mob. Thanks Frank, you fucking twat. Anyway, I go to the mall and meet this detective guy who has sort of been around, but he kind of avoids me when he can. He's a federal agent who apparently is looking into the mob boss who's apparently after me and Frank. He keeps telling me to stay away from Vincent, the guy I hit on at the fashion show. But I can hardly be blamed. I mean, an estate agent just randomly let him into my house. What am I supposed to do then? So I'm invited over by Frank's brother, Daniel, the flamboyant gay guy who ran the fashion show, and he tells me that he's actually starting to get a little worried. Yeah, no shit. So I go next door and ask Mike the plumber for his... Well, I ask him to come and see to my plumbing, but I also ask him for a gun. So I give Daniel a gun and immediately get a call from my husband who tells me to come down. It's an emergency. Time is of the essence. Every second counts, etc. So after fucking the mailman, I get to the doctor's office to find out that Frank's been beaten up by some guys who he apparently met with without checking in with the feds, the cops, or even his friends and family. If he died, nobody would have known. He would have just vanished off the face of the earth. No time to worry about sense now though. Daniel might still be in danger.
I don't see what's wrong. If the NRA has taught me anything, it's that any man with a gun can suddenly become Rambo. So, he's got nothing to worry about.
I'm bleeding. Help me. They shot me. Damn it. They shot me.
Oh. Well. Shit. Who would have guessed that the NRA were talking out their arse?
Take care of my begonias.
One thing that I always want to mention is that I really like the detective aspects offered in this side quest. you're able to look up Agent Eric Larson, the federal agent, by using the search engine. Only this time, you're given 3 results. The top one needs a password, but if you look into the guy, you can find out what the password is. It's far from challenging, admittedly, but it feels kind of unique and creative. How you have to dig a little in order to get some information on the character to guess what his password is. Though, if his password was this easy in real life, he would most likely be fired. So I did some snooping around and discovered that Mike and Carlos are 2 main suspects. Now this is another gripe that I have with the game. I would have thought that I'd gotten Mike into deep shit, as I gave his gun to Daniel the night before he was shot. I originally thought that he was shot with his own gun, which he wasn't from the looks of things. The killer brought his own gun from home. Okay, I can accept that. Though I did think that this would implicate Mike. His prints will be all over the gun that I gave to Daniel. And that gun is now in the house. The fucking murder house. Not only is this never brought up again, but Mike's gun, this entire thing, was never brought up either. So, what happened? Did the police find it and, like, just ignore it? Or throw it in the trash? Did they even find it? Does Mike get it back? Does he want it back? Is he worried? I don't know. It's never brought up again. The reason that this bothers me so much is that I feel like a good plot development was kind of squandered here. Mike being a suspect, as well as him parting with his gun less than 24 hours before the murder, it seems certain that this story was going this way, like the building blocks were slotting into place. If it's not though, I struggle to make sense of why Mike and Carlos are suspected, simply because they have criminal records? We know that Frank has enemies at this point. People have threatened his life. Shouldn't the police have put 2 and 2 together by now and realised that Frank's enemies are probably the ones that killed Daniel? Why the hell would 2 rich guys go out and kill their neighbours just because they have a criminal record? It's even established that Frank got the shit kicked out of him less than an hour before it happened. Hell, Carlos's criminal record is for illegal business practices. He says it himself. Makes sense that the next logical step be murder. Surely it would make sense for Mike and Bree to be the top suspects, having easy access to guns, and obviously with Bree most likely not having a criminal record, Mike would be prime suspect if they were going to go down this route, but again, he's never brought up again. Of course, Mike has nothing to do with it, something that's blatantly obvious by now, something that we should all know, so I end up just going over to try and clear his name, only to end up again in his pants.
Sorry, I just can't resist this charm.
So now we have a funeral for Daniel, and I'm in charge of giving everyone a good talking to. Oddly enough though, nobody seems to give a shit. Like, a human life has just been lost. And most of these people either don't care, or are more worried about it happening to them, because apparently all these people are a target of the mob now. Anyway, I start off by talking to Edie.
Hey!
Shit. Okay, maybe I could have better luck with Gabby?
Ow! What's with you?
Oh, for fuck's sake, I give up on this bollocks.
Right, so I follow some leads and find out that my son, who was out past his bedtime like the little cockwomble that he is, saw Lynette flirting with some guys in a car. So, I went to talk to her, and, well, Tom gets mad.
What? Is this your game? Spreading... You know, I've heard some things about your son. I was trying to give him the benefit of the doubt.
Can't seem to do anything right, can I? Not today, at least.
Ow! What's with you?
Right, so it turns out that it was Gabby flirting with the guys in the car. Not only did she flirt with them, but she also has their names, told them where their victim was, and even had one of their phone numbers.
Ow! What's with you?
Thank you!
So I have to investigate to clear my son's name, as everyone's suddenly blaming him. I personally am happy to let them, but sadly the game wants me to be an unbiased mother. This quest's villain, according to the guide, depends on how you handled episode 3. I'm guessing it's whoever was left Muhammadless resulting of your decisions, and eventually resulted to doing this shit. Another thing that I like is that you get several people to write that Danielle is easy to compare handwriting, and the way that you get Julie, Susan's daughter, to do it is actually pretty clever.
I wouldn't know what to write. That doesn't make sense. Shouldn't this be like a personal message or something? Sounds a little weird to me. But, okay. What should I write? Wow, I didn't realize you cared about Daniel so much. It's so sweet of you to do this in his memory. Here's my message to add to your book.
So I go home and invite Eric over to the house for dinner. Now this is where things get a bit exciting. We talk for a bit, and it's at this point that I realised that this was boiling down as to who I like the most out of these three characters. Eric seemed to be the most trustworthy and honest. Dr. Keith David was a cheating asshat who could just never come clean about anything. And who the fuck wants to get with Vinny? I mean, if it isn't enough that he's an asshat in the game through most of his scenes, it's actually established that he tried to kill you, like years ago. He's the reason that you have amnesia and a horrific scar on your face. Eric seems to provide the most information out of the three if you invite him over, and from what I understand, we talk for a bit and learn a lot before Keith David comes and, well, he's shooed out of the house. Jesus, Keith David's a prick in this. Okay, so this is it. The grand finale. I come downstairs and find Keith David and Nick Valentine tied up with Vinny holding a gun at them. And after talking for a bit, he hands me the gun and tells me and I have to kill my husband and the cop in order to get out of this situation. And then he gives me the gun. Well, I'm guessing he's either a fucking idiot who just gave me a loaded gun, or he's a fucking idiot who gave me an empty one. Needless to say, it wasn't loaded and I looked like a right wally for trying to shoot him. But oh well, it was worth a shot. So, now that that's happened, guess it's time to fuck the villain. So after fucking the villain, I grab his gun and point it at him, resulting in him being arrested happily ever after. But no. No, it's not yet anyway, because you see, Keith David and I, well, I'm not gonna lie, he might have the body of a sex god, but he's a fucking dolt. So I don't want him anymore. I want Dick Tracy.
That's right. I want me some dick.
But don't worry though, my husband takes it well.
This is all your fault, Larson. If you hadn't been nosing around using my wife as a way to catch this crook, none of this would have ever happened. That's enough out of you. You ruined my life, do you know that?
All right, calm down. Drop the gun and don't come any further.
If this comes out, I can't go back to a normal life. I'd have to shut down my practice, move to another town. Everything would change.
I mean it. Hold it right there.
And it's all your fault!
When faced with tough decisions, one is often forced to make sacrifices. Some of us choose to sacrifice stability. Some of us choose to forego excitement and lavish riches. While others choose to rekindle relationships from years past, in a hope of recapturing the happiness that has eluded them for so long. For even though our choices may never be perfect, with time, effort, and the support of those closest to us, we somehow find a way to reach for the brass ring and find happiness nonetheless.
Whoa, that was a tough one. And the funny thing is, I have only really covered the bare basics of the plot here, as well as making my garden the finest garden on Wisteria Lane. It makes the botanical garden look like a pile of Japanese knotweed in comparison. So to conclude, what's my overall impression of this game? I'd say that it looks nice, the characters look and sound like they're who they're supposed to be at least, most of the time anyway, and the feeling of the show from the writing to the aesthetics, it's actually mostly preserved to a rather impressive degree. The writing has clearly had a put of effort into it, which is commendable. It doesn't always pay off, as I said. There are some aspects of this plot that are just unnecessary, and some plot points that don't make 100% of sense to me, but at the same time, I can't help but be too amazed that this thing has a fucking plot to begin with. Hell, I'd say that this isn't even a bad plot at all. The game honestly provides intrigue, interesting characters, and a lot to do, as well as quite a bit of replayability. Bear in mind that this was in 2006, 1 year before Mass Effect, the game that I feel personally set the trend of decision making in games being a major factor. The visuals actually remind me a lot of Hitman Blood Money, and overall the game itself, I feel like it holds up today. On most fronts at least. I genuinely had a lot of fun playing this, and it might sound like I'm being apologetic, but no, I'm really not. This game has little to apologise for, and the things that it gets wrong are in my books mostly or even completely forgivable, depending on what they are. It knows what it wants, and more importantly, it knows what its audience wants. And I can't believe that this fucking thing has had much more effort put into it than so many other games that should genuinely be amazing, but just fall completely flat because nobody gave a fuck. It's a shame that the name and the fact that this is tied to somewhat of an obscure TV show probably hasn't done it much by way of favours. As a game, I think this would have been well received in 2006. Hell, it was on some sites. As mentioned before, I personally don't disagree with IGN for giving this game an 8 out of 10. I'd personally more give it a 7 maybe. I don't know. If I was feeling generous, an 8. If I was really trying to be hard on it, I'd say a 7. But I definitely don't think it's anything short of good. But at the end of the day, this game tries hard to entertain, and it succeeds. At least in my books it does. I'd highly recommend trying this if this piqued your interest. If you like strong narratives in your games, then you might want to give this one a go. It's by no means a masterpiece story like Spec Ops or Walking Dead, but it's definitely above average. Hell, I'd even say it was good. In fact, no, fuck it, I am saying it's good, and if you don't like it, then blow me. Bottom line, I'd like more games like this. Games that fucking try to engage you and put a lot more effort in than they should. This game honestly made me glad that I took up this show. I genuinely know now that some games out there will be just as good as this one. I've just got to do my best to put my speculation aside and give everything a fair chance.